An easy target. Pence takes barbs from both sides as he proves his loyalty to Trump. It was the mildest of compliments from a predecessor. Joe Biden rather benignly described Vice President Pence as a decent guy. And that's when the attacks began. Senior Elizabeth Warren. Pence has found himself thrust unwittingly into the center of the 2020 presidential debate, becoming a square-jawed punching bag for Democrats and, at times, even some in his own party. Ever willing to defend Trump, Pence has drawn fervent opposition from a Democratic base that opposes his socially conservative policies and his docile allegiance to the president. Some Republicans, yet in some ways, the public abasement of Pence is good for all sides, including for Pence himself. Aides and allies of, on Friday, as Trump vetoed the Senate's embarrassing rejection of his national emergency declaration, the vice president again demonstrated his fealty. "I don't know if it," Nick Ayers, Pence's former chief of staff, said the vice president sometimes finds himself a political bullseye because he works hard to avoid taking credit for the work he does. When his advice is taken, we don't read about it, Ayers said. More importantly, Mike Murphy, a Republican strategist and frequent Trump critic, offers a less flattering view, describing Pence as a supplicant. Pence has made a decision to have a constituency of one person, Donald Trump, Murphy said. And so he doesn't. Pence rarely responds directly to his critics. The White House sees attacking Pence, however, plays well among Democrats, especially those striving to differentiate themselves in a crowded field. Biden's modest, "Please consider how this falls on the ears of our community." Biden, who is considering a presidential run, to say Nixon was right and that there is nothing decent about being anti-LGBTQ rights, and that includes the vice president. Pence, meanwhile, told Fox News on Thursday that Biden had caved in to liberal activists in apologizing for his original comments. When asked for their views on Pence, other Democratic candidates have used the opportunity to distance themselves from Biden, who is believed likely to announce his own 2020 candidacy soon. Buttigieg, who is gay and a fellow Hoosier, has been the most aggressive in taking on Pence, a former governor of Indiana. Buttigieg has in a telephone interview, Buttigieg said he has two theories of what he views as Pence's evolution from a stalwart Christian conservative to Trump lackey. Either Pence traded his sense of morality for power, he said, or the vice president has somehow persuaded himself that this is consistent with some divine plan. The president doesn't really pretend that hard to uphold Christian values, and so I think there's a sense when he's doing some of these outrageous things, that everybody's in on the joke, Buttigieg said. But with Pence, White House officials said Buttigieg and other Democrats are only trying to raise their profiles by sharpening their attacks on Pence, a strategy that they say alienates millions of Christian voters. A senior administrator, the fact that he has more or less become a litmus test for the Democrats in 2020 essentially speaks to the fact that he's become the gold standard for what it means to be a conservative, said Pence spokeswoman Alyssa Farah. Pence mainly feels compelled to publicly push back on criticism when he feels Christians or his faith are being unfairly maligned, the officials said. The vice president, Pence's views on women have become something of an obsession for his critics. Pence told The Hill, "The idea that you would deny a professional woman the opportunity to have a meeting with the Vice President of the United States is outrageous," Harris said Thursday on MSNBC. Farah dismissed Harris' charge as a false claim. He's elevated women to positions of leadership throughout his career and relies on their advice and counsel, she wrote Thursday on Twitter. While aides sometimes publicly defend Pence, the vice president has largely stayed out of the fray and focused his energy on serving Trump, taking political attacks and parrying them back to focus on the administration's policies. Last week, Pence conveyed to Republican senators that voting in favor of the Democratic resolution disapproving of Trump's national emergency declaration would be viewed as voting against both the president and border security and would likely have consequences. some waivers. Earlier this month, another intra-party disagreement emerged when former Vice President Richard B. Cheney Pence directly during a March 9 closed-door retreat hosted by the American Enterprise Institute in Sea Island, Gage, repeatedly criticizing in blunt terms the Trump administration's foreign policy record. Though the Sea Island event was presented as being off the record before accounts leaked, Pence's private comments were similar to the robust defense of the president he often offers in public. That unwavering one Republican close to the White House, who requested anonymity to speak frankly, described Pence as Mr. Bobblehead, an allusion to his frequent pose nodding alongside Trump. The vice president's synergy with Trump has long sparked such mockery. During a FEMA brief, the video of the synchronized water bottle removal briefly went viral. In an interview with during another meeting last year in the White House Situation Room, Pence paused the proceedings when he noticed the presidential seal was still hanging on the wall. Two people familiar with the moment said. He asked an aide. A vice presidential seal was put in its place, one White House official said, and the meeting continued.